I spent 2 years in and out of spiritual burnout, meditating for hours each day, obsessively doing mindfulness techniques in between, but knowing deep down that I was stuck. My peace, clarity, and happiness were dependent on the amount of practice I did, which in turn was dependent on my energy, which always ran out sooner or later. I'd aggressively cut back on everything else in my life, family, friends, dating, work, hobbies, and I was putting all the energy I saved into trying to get enlightened. But it never could have worked because it was built on a faulty view. And then one day, I heard Ram Dass ask one simple question that grabbed me by the neck and slammed me face first into a whole new paradigm. Here's what he said. Do you want to be a meditator, or do you want to be free? I'd never considered that I might have a dependency on meditation. But that's what Ram Dass was pointing at. If I'd heard this at the beginning of my journey, it wouldn't have made sense. But having applied so much effort to my spiritual practice that my family was literally scared for me, I saw what Ram Dass meant. As long as I had to do something to be free, I was by definition not free. Even if my practice had been going perfectly, as long as I had to sit in a special way or do a special technique, as long as I was trying to fix or purify or improve myself, or my mind, or my heart, or my soul, I was not free. And this cured my blind faith in spiritual striving. And though this wasn't the end of my journey, it was the turning point that led me to the non-dual teaching, which I'll demonstrate practically in this video. And that teaching is what revealed the natural peace, clarity, and contentment that I'm here to help you realize. Now, one of the questions I get an awful lot about this is, what if you have to do a certain amount of effortful practice in order to then be free? Well, the awkward answer is that this is different for everyone. Some people will hear a non-dual pointing and see what is being pointed at and wake up right then and there. This is exceptionally rare. It was not the case for me. I did years of relativistic, effortful practices before I then heard the non-dual teaching, and then had a period of transition of letting go of my relativistic practices and relaxing into the non-dual view. Now the question then is, if we're not applying effort, and if this teaching of non-duality is about relaxing, is about rest, well, what is it exactly that we're doing? Because, hey, Dan, look, I put my feet up every night. I watch Netflix. Surely I'm at rest then? Not really. The key point in the non-dual teaching is best expressed in the single word recognition. Instead of trying to fix or purify or improve ourselves, we're rather focused on recognizing what is and always has been true in our direct experience right now, with no speculation about the future or what kind of result may come of it. It is a radical view, a radical practice. of being here right now, confirming what is true in our direct experience, what we can actually recognize for ourselves, doing away with all models, all forecasts of what might happen, and simply being with what is as it is. And this is difficult for many people to grasp. We tend to want something to grab onto, which is why techniques are so popular. They give us something to do. And we've been told all our lives that if we want something good to happen, then we must do something to make it happen. This is built on another faulty assumption, which is that we begin broken and must fix ourselves. What if all we have to do in order for that something good to happen is precisely nothing? And how would we know, in our typical way of being, whether or not that were true? Because we've forgotten how to do nothing, haven't we, friend? We are raised into this action bias, this compulsive doing. So even when we think we're at rest, even when we've got our feet up and we're watching Netflix, we're not really at rest. We're making judgments about what we see on the screen, judgments about ourselves as we relate to it. We're distracted by thoughts of what occurred that day, thoughts of what may occur tomorrow, maybe thoughts about our spiritual practice. Hey, I really should be meditating instead of watching Netflix right now. In the non-dual view, we see all of this as just stuff. None of it more significant than the rest. And so I'd like to guide you through an experiential recognition of this view right now. It's delightfully simple, but it may turn out to be too simple for you right now. We'll see. If you're here and you've been watching this video for this long, up to this point, then I'm safe to assume that you've meditated at least once. And if you've meditated at least once, it may very well have been a breath meditation, or you'll at least be familiar with the idea of breath meditation. We're going to use the breath in a different way right now. We're going to begin with that classic instruction to pay attention to the breath. So go ahead, pay attention to your breath as I speak. Don't worry if you get distracted, just set the intention to pay attention to your breath, just for a moment. Now consider, how is it that you know that you're aware of your breath? In other words, who or what is observing the breathing? Don't answer in words. Go to the experience. Who or what is looking at the breath? Now consider, what is that? If you can detect that observer, if you have a sense of self in the picture right now, well, guess what? That has now become an object, just like your breath is an object. It is something you're observing. You are observing it, therefore it is object, not subject, not self. So again, we have the breath, then that which is observing the breath. And if you can observe that, then it too becomes object, no different to the breath. Now, what is aware of that? There's the breath, that which is observing the breath. If you can find that, then now you're observing that. Who or what is observing that? Now, everyone is different here. When I first stumbled upon this practice spontaneously, I found there were actually many layers, and I would step back and back and back, and each time I would find a new self, a new subject, and then I would retreat to observe it, and it would become object. But at some point, friend, with any luck right now, you will search for an observer, a perceiver, and you will fail to find anything. This failure is success. When you find nothing, you have found what you are. Aware space with no substance or characteristics, in which, as which, by which, through which, all of this stuff is known. Whether that stuff is the breath, or whether that stuff is a sense of yourself that you've been carrying around for decades. As I said, this exercise plays out differently for everyone. Some of us are waiting a long time for this to really land, for this to really impact us in a profound way. But just recently I heard from someone who had been waiting for 50 years. 50 years. This dedicated practitioner reached out to me after hanging out on this channel watching some of these videos, and he sent me a message that brought me to tears. I won't read you the whole thing, but toward the end of that message he said, "I want to thank you, Dan, very strongly for your teaching on awareness. I've studied Rupert Spira's teachings particularly on this, but somehow never got it experientially. I've had periods of true bliss since I met you on YouTube. Don't know how you do it." Well, I've had some practice, and I want to pay respect to Rupert Spira here, wonderful, wonderful teacher from who I have learned much. We all hear different teachings differently at different times. And with a teaching like this, more than any other, there is much to be said for the mystery of compatibility between teacher and student, the way a certain teacher will present this teaching, and the enormous complexity of each student's journey up to that moment. When I was studying Alexander technique, which is a discipline you don't need to know anything about for this story to make sense, as a trainee, I was passed around among dozens of teachers for exactly this reason, that they knew within that organization that though those many teachers were teaching the same principles, they all taught them in their own way. And I saw many times, not only for myself but for other trainees, that on rare occasion, the perfect constellation of the moment, their own journey up to that point, and the right teacher at the right time would come together and something profound would occur. So this is all that's happened for Paul. Please resist any temptation to make any objective judgment on the quality of anyone's teaching. Nonetheless, I was delighted that Paul had this experience, and so I jumped at the chance to meet him on a call, and we had a wonderful conversation in which I asked him toward the end, having finally had this realization, what would you say to someone who is still on the other side, who is still searching, still seeking, still striving, still engaging with many teachings and finding that none of them quite work? Here's what Paul said. He said, "You really are free. You really are okay. You can let go. It's safe to let go. You don't have to work on the issues. You don't have to defeat it. You don't have to get rid of it. You are the observer, whether you think you are or not." And of course, Paul here means the grand observer, that wide open, pure awareness. That's what you are, says Paul. So I hope these words of encouragement are beneficial to you, friend. I hope this practice that I shared today was beneficial to you. If you feel you need more time with it, of course, come back to this video. Timestamps in the description. And if you want to know more about where you yourself fit into this whole picture, I designed a 1-minute quiz for you, following which you'll get some personalized, deeper guidance. There's a link to that quiz in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that tell YouTube you want to see more of them. I'll be back here soon.